All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is John Skis, and I'm the Director of Media for TAPS. I want to welcome everybody for coming to this information session on esports with TAPS and PlayVS today. We've got a lot of information to cover, but I've got a couple of housekeeping items that I want to mention before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available on the TAPS YouTube page later today. You can find that at youtube.com/tapsbiz. We're also going to put that link in the follow-up email that you get tomorrow. And we're going to put those links on our social media channels. So if there's somebody on your campus that needs this information but couldn't be with us today, please share this video with them. Second, as we go through the presentation, if you have any questions, please use the questions feature in the GoToWebinar interface. We're going to try to answer those as best we can as we go. But if we don't get to your question right away, that's fine. There's going to be a Q&A portion at the end, and we'll catch up and see anything that we missed. If we don't get to your question today, or if it's just too in the weeds for us to deal with appropriately in this venue, please send us an email, info@taps.biz, or call the TAPS office, and we'll have some other help resources up for you at the end of the presentation. Third, if you are having any trouble with the webinar, you can use the questions feature or the chat to get my attention, and I will help you out as best I can. All right. So, connecting all the way from the conference room in the TAPS office, we are joined today by Brian Bunselmeyer, the TAPS Executive Director, Robert Huckabee, our Director of Compliance, Steve Prudhomme, the TAPS Associate Director, and Will Degson from the TAPS office staff. He's going to be helping us out behind the keyboard today. He's going to be running our presentation. We're also joined by Vina Williams, the TAPS Director of Fine Arts. She's connecting from the Waco area. And from PlayVS, we are joined by Dr. Clint Kennedy, Director of Education, who is out on the East Coast, and James Kay, Market Manager, who is coming at us from the West Coast. Before I hand it over to Robert, we've got a quick poll for everybody who's in attendance today. We'd just like to know what your role at your particular school is. So if you could let us know real quick, if you are an AD or Fine Arts Director, if you're an active esports coach or moderator, a potential esports coach or moderator, if you're thinking about it, if you're another staff member at a TAPS school, or if you are not a TAPS member at a staff school. If you could let us know real quick what your role is. I'm going to leave this open for about 20 more seconds, and then I'm going to hand it over to Robert, and we'll get started. Looks about just everybody has voted. Mostly directors today. Good morning. All right. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And Robert, it's your show.
All right, John, thank you very much. Welcome this morning to all of our viewers. This is an exciting time for us. We've talked about esports in TAPS for several years now, and we're fortunate to have PlayVS as our new partner to help us kick this off this year. And what we're going to do this morning in this webinar is we're just going to share some basic information from you. As you can see, we've got several people on the call. They'll be chiming in at different times, helping give us some basic information. We'll have some more in-depth webinars coming as we get closer and into the school year, go into more detail. But today we wanted to jump in there and just share some information about where we've been historically and where we see ourselves going this year. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Brian to give us some opening comments.
Again, reiterate, thank you all for joining us here today. As the Director of TAPS, we continue to evaluate programs and the offerings that we can have for our schools. And I think that we've worked with PlayVS here for a while, and we finally were able to come up with a great partnership as we move forward. I look forward to hearing what they have to say today, as well as what we have planned for the future. Steve, to you.
Yeah, we're very excited. This is adding a new activity and a new competition to TAPS is exciting, and like I said, especially something that is growing during this pandemic is esports. So it's good to see some growth. It's good to see something come to fruition, and like I said, it's a good ray of hope as we move forward, and we're excited to be part of it. I'll go ahead and pass it over to Clint.
Hello, everybody. I really appreciate you all taking some time with us today. Super excited about this new partnership with TAPS and really helping to educate you all and get you up to speed on what this opportunity is about. PlayVS has now been working with associations and educational organizations, including the NFHS around the country for over 2 years now, with with many states and thousands of schools and even more competitors and students, really getting a real opportunity to compete, but also to see connections to educational benefits and other things with esports. So really excited about our conversation today and continuing that through more opportunities like this over the course of the summer to get ready for opportunities in the fall. So super excited, and thank you everyone for having us.
All right, thank you, Clint. We're going to jump now into some information where you can go to find resources and information about this new venture on the TAPS website, on the PlayVS website. We're going to jump into the TAPS website, Will, if you would, and then Steve's going to walk us through where you can kind of navigate the TAPS website and find information about PlayVS.
Yeah, PlayVS is going to be located under Fine Arts. So you would click on the Fine Arts tab. It will take you to the esports page. And as we're looking at it, you can look over, click esports. As you say, it's the same format as the other fine arts activities and sports that we have on the website. You'll be able to click at the top rules to tell you what the TAPS and the PlayVS rules are. When we get to schools, you'll have a list of schools, the standings, other resources, and obviously contact us, which will get you an opportunity to contact the TAPS office directly. As you look down on the page, you're going to see important dates. Also, you'll see the tweets, which will be on the bottom right hand. We just had another good article in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram announcing our partnership with PlayVS, and also the red buttons, which have a lot of good resource information that we were able to put there if you want to see something right away about esports. So it's the same old TAPS website. Go into TAPS Biz, something we hope you do every day. But those who are involved in esports, it's under Fine Arts, and check back periodically. Clint, we're going to move over to the PlayVS website, and Will, if you could slide over to that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I would love to introduce my my colleague James, who's going to take you through a spin of the PlayVS website.
Hey everyone, this is James. I've been working with a bunch of Texas schools here for about a year or so. So super excited to kind of kick this off the ground. And honestly, getting signed up for the PlayVS website is fairly easy. I guess there's two things that I want to really show here. Is one, just how to get a account set up and kind of get into the system. If you want to go ahead and on the website, you'll see that fall 2020 starts here, sign up today. There's quite literally just a little get started button there. You can go ahead and click that. Once you click that, it's going to ask you for a little tiny bit of information about yourself, that just being an email address and a password. And then kind of from there, what that process is going to look like is it's going to ask you information about your school itself. Where are you located? What's your role at the school? Very basic information. At which point somebody like myself will be reaching out to you directly to work you through, the rest of that process. But the only other thing I want to say before hopping to the next part of the website is that just try to have an idea of who the students would be that you would think that would be interested in a program like this, and just kind of get started on that. We'll have this process going until September or October or so, but the earlier you get started, the earlier things start to get done, and we've got a bunch of giveaways and stuff like that we're doing for anybody getting this started early. If you can hit the back button for me and go back to the main website. Other interesting sections is obviously the why PlayVS is on the very top. You can see a little bit of information about the benefits of kind of what we're doing, but also esports at large, the connections between esports and things like STEM or fine arts, or just these positive benefits that you would see. If you could scroll over to the resources tab on the very far right, that's where you're going to find a lot of our resources. If you hit right into the overview, there is a ton of different information on what it is, how to get started, and everything in between. And I'm happy to share some of the information as well, so we can get it sent out. But you will be finding a lot of the top-notch, best pieces of information actually back on that TAPS website. Under those red buttons, they kind of just link out to a lot of the information that we've been curating. But that's about it from me.
All right, James, thank you very much. Hey, we've got a couple of questions here already, so we're going to jump in and grab those right quick. Brian, I'll give you the first one. Why is esports a part of fine arts in TAPS?
So for those that know and those that don't know, we have two categories of opportunities here at TAPS. You have fine arts and you have athletics. This is considered a team activity. If we were to put it under the athletics category, you would have a beginning and ending date for your season, and we chose to put it under fine arts so that there is no beginning or end. You can start when you want, you can practice when you want, you can go forward just like the rest of our fine arts. So we did it to provide you opportunity to go more than just the seasons as we have them listed on the website. So we're hoping to make that an opportunity, not a restriction.
All right, thank you, Brian. I'll throw this next one over to either Clint, you or James. Will TAPS be issuing base specs for esports systems? Can you guys help us with that?
Sure. So this is Clint. So yes, this is a question we get from schools all across the country. PlayVersus has really taken the approach. We want to make the bar for entry for schools everywhere as low as possible. So all the games that we provide, and for the most part, the games we will be continuing to add over time, require a PC and adequate bandwidth. Usually that PC, we typically say, 2, 3, 4 years old or newer. Most competitive teams are participating in a computer lab in their school. That's typically the newest one. That being said, if you remember the resources section that James mentioned prior, certainly we provide some basic minimum specs and some recommended specs for that. But more or less, we often see schools thinking that they need to go out and make a large purchase of equipment. That is not necessarily the case. Certainly you should review what machines you're thinking about and match those specs to what we publish. And certainly you can reach out to our support crew to get information as well. Another piece of that too is people often ask about bandwidth. And as a former CTO for a couple different school districts in Connecticut, we typically saw that spike in internet access during the course of the school day, and then we would see it fall off quite a bit right after that last period of the day. A typical esports practice or competitive time happens after school, so we just pick up in that bandwidth where it starts to drop off. So that is typically not an issue at all.
To quickly reiterate a little tiny bit on the system requirements and things like that, I do have a school that was in our top 8 of the past little Texas Club League that we had last season that was playing on some 6-year-old Dell Optiplex computers, just the ones that you would find that your teachers are using right now. And they were able to do pretty well in one of the games, League of Legends very specifically. But happy to, if you ever have any questions or things like that, we're happy to speak with you one-on-one as well.
All right, thanks guys, that's very helpful. In an answer to the specific question, will TAPS separately be issuing any specs? No, we'll follow the lead of PlayVS. They're the experts in this area. So reach out to them if you need help, if you have questions, they'll be glad to help you in that respect. All right, Will, let's jump on to the next slide. What do we have next? Oh, we've got some certificates here. So we're so excited about this in the TAPS office that we jumped in immediately and went through the education portion of what PlayVS offers with regard to coach training and education. It's a very good educational model. It doesn't take that long to go through it. There's some great information there in that resource. So obviously we'll encourage you to be a part of that as you move into this. You think about adding this at your school, who might be the person that is going to be your coach and sponsor. They have some great resources there that are available to you. And we've jumped in there as a TAPS staff to get acquainted with it as best we can. All right, Will. Technology. All right, questions about technology we've already had. Certainly, what's this going to cost? What's involved? How do I jump in here? Steve, jump in a little bit and talk to our viewers about what the cost is and how they can get started here.
Well, first of all, we're thrilled, and what was said in the press release about getting other kids involved that aren't involved in anything else, or getting kids further involved with their school is a huge plus. And so there's a great deal of excitement. But what tempers that is how much is it going to cost? And what we quoted in the press release was $64 per student, but there's a lot of programs and specials that are out there, and I'm going to let Clint talk about that.
Thank you. So yes, so we have traditionally always held to that $64 per student per season, and we offer quite a few games. So just if I could back up very briefly, a rough analogy for those who you may not be familiar with esports in general, often a program is similar to a track team in that you have a coach overseeing an adult of record helping to support students, but there are multiple, in this case, esports being played within that. And as of right now, PlayVS offers League of Legends, Rocket League, Smite, and Fortnite, but we're hoping to be announcing additional games in early July, and we will always continue to work with game publishers and the like to add game titles as you all in the community guide us and so forth. So we will be adding some additional pricing components. We've heard from the community, and we're hoping to offer a free level, which will not allow schools to compete necessarily for a TAPS title, but it will allow them to get their feet wet, see the games, play the games in scrimmage mode and so forth. And then we're also hoping to have kind of an all-in level where schools can purchase with one budgeted line the opportunity for as many students, unlimited games for the entire year. So that we should be making those announcements in short order as well to provide as much flexibility for schools to be able to fit the number of students who want to participate, but also budget needs and the like. As far as additional costs go, again, as I mentioned, we really try to design this so that we're leveraging the dollars spent within schools to date. But there should be a couple things on your radar screen. One, students are competing on a PC, so they can use current PCs with keyboard and mouse. They can certainly bring in their own controller that would plug into that PC. But oftentimes, schools may be lacking or sharing a headset with headphones and a mic. Really is critical. So that's something to think about to make sure that the communication between these students, both in practice and game time, is available to them. Jerseys are always nice to have. When I started doing this 5 years ago and coaching a team, I had to, we got jerseys and they wore them on game days, just like the football team or the softball team. We had to put a rule in where they couldn't wear them every day. They were very proud of them, but we only wore them on game days. And really the other piece that I like to comment on as far as cost goes, as far as the adult of record, it looks a little different across the country. We have some wonderful volunteer coaches across the country that are supporting new programs because this is still very new to a lot of schools. But then we also have, depending on how this is financed, or activities and sports and the like are financed at schools through a contract and so forth. Many coaches will receive some type of activity or athletic stipend or payment, again, based on what the typical fiscal arrangement is in the school. So those are really the general things you should be thinking about from a cost perspective. There are always ways to augment that through some fundraising or a monthly game night or what have you that students can help provide and do some linking to maybe some of the curriculum within school. But those are the main categories you should be thinking about as you start to prepare for the fall.
All right, Clint, thank you very much. We got some more questions here. Clint, I'm going to throw these next couple to you. First one, is it $64 per game, and how long is the season? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So yeah, so traditionally, notwithstanding those additional levels that I was talking about should be coming out very soon, and we'll make sure everybody's aware of that. Traditionally, it was $64 per student per season per game. A typical season runs 2 to 3 weeks of preseason, a regular 8-week season, and then a playoffs and a championship component to that. Typically, the top 50% or so of schools make the playoffs and get seeded into a bracket. We typically look to our partners, in this case, of course, TAPS, to help guide what that should look like and so forth. As far as the season ahead of us goes, a couple things to keep in mind. One, we are going to be offering a preseason jamboree, a free opportunity for schools with teams to get in and compete for free. There'll be a group stage and a bracketed stage, so there'll be plenty of opportunity to play. And then we'll hit the preseason will start mid-September, and we'll have everything buttoned up middle of December before the winter break.
All right, sounds good. I'm going to throw this question to Brian. How will virtual learning be accommodated?
I'm going to step out and make a big assumption that we're talking about in-person classes versus online virtual learning. The requirement here is that every student on the team needs to be a full-time day student at the school that they're competing with. So that would be a question you need to go back and make sure with your fine art director, your athletic director, your principal to make sure homeschool students would not be eligible. This is strictly going to be for those that are a full-time day student, and that's described. So if your school is doing a virtual learning environment, then as long as they're full-time for that school, then they would still be eligible. If that doesn't answer what we're looking at, be glad to elaborate later on. But virtual versus in person, as long as the school is virtual versus in person, then that would be allowed and acceptable under the full-time day student rule.
All right.
And this is Clint, just if I could piggyback on that very briefly. So we had this situation, obviously this past spring with COVID-19 and many, if not all schools closing down. What PlayVersus decided to do was we took our model, which is very much centered around students competing with a coach in their school together as a team. To accommodate the changing scenario, we did move to an at-home model so that students and teams could compete together virtually at home. But yes, just to reiterate, that's always with the permission of the school. And PlayVersus has been making many plans for this fall. So regardless of what happens at individual schools or the state level, national level regarding the pandemic, we will be prepared to have an offering that will work with TAPS as well as partnered schools to accommodate students.
All right. Thank you, Clint. Here's another one regarding particular games. Any chance for Overwatch to be added, or is it too early to discuss?
Great question. Thank you for asking. I happen to be a big fan of the game of Overwatch and probably have too many hours on it. That being said, I would love for whoever asked this question, others who are interested, to stay tuned for early July.
Okay. Another question regarding the leagues, and then we'll jump back after this question onto our presentation. If a school were to be involved in a different league, such as HSEL, in addition to PlayVS, will the games provided by PlayVS be available to be played, or are they exclusive to PlayVS only contests?
So PlayVersus certainly would not want to limit the participation of any school doing anything that they value and want to be part of. We will continue to expand our game lineup and provide as many opportunities to play through PlayVersus leagues in association with TAPS for a TAPS title and for other opportunities across the state of Texas. So there are no limits to what students can do with the games that we're playing and so forth. But of course, we feel that our experience working with our partners is the best one, and really looking forward to schools participating fully in all that we have to offer late summer and in the fall.
All right, thank you. At this point, I want to introduce Vina Williams. We're going to talk a little bit about contest coming up. So Vina, say hi to our viewers and share some thoughts with us.
Hey guys, it's Vina. Well, we are looking so forward to this new opportunity with the schools. With our, we hope to have some events that are specific to TAPS, but also within the PlayVersus realm. So I think with our calendar, we're looking at just making sure that we have it spaced out, but staying with the PlayVS dates. We will do a TAPS participation at the beginning. When you turn in your participation form, just make sure that you designate PlayVersus as one of the opportunities your school participate in, and then we will follow along the PlayVersus fall and spring season, and your school can decide which seasons you participate in and which specific games. But it is for on our end, we'd like that to be designated on your on your fall participation form when you submit that.
Sounds great. let's jump on, Will, to the next slide and talk a little bit about the competition structure from a TAPS perspective. Vina, help us out with what we're thinking there, and then we'll let Clint jump in and give some comments as well.
For our, just as we do all our TAPS events, we would like to have a division of TAPS participation. So depending on the number of schools that sign up for a particular game, that will help us to have a division. We'll start out with one division with all our schools, but definitely as we increase the number of schools participating and the number of teams participating, we will increase the number of divisions. So we hope that we can have a good TAPS championship with multiple schools in each of the games that are offered.
So I'm super excited about the offerings that are available to schools starting this summer. So PlayVersus really organizes the league structures kind of in two offerings. We have the varsity offering as well as club. So varsity, as the name implies, is very similar to a traditional sporting event or league or even robotics, other activities, in that you have your top team in a particular game, could be all the games, competing for a title through the fall season and the spring season. And again, as was mentioned, at this point, we're going to put all TAPS schools together. We're not going to have necessarily categories to start, but we're hoping that we can do that in the near future.
All right, we lost Clint there for a minute. Maybe he'll be back with us. John, if you can troubleshoot for us, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Sorry about that, folks.
All right. Next topic is awards. We love to give awards. Vina, jump in there. And
late summer, early spring, early fall, before we start the season, which will lead directly into the preseason for that fall season. And one thing to note too, I don't think I was as clear before. It's important to note that we will be running that exact same structure of the fall season in the spring season. We love having those two full league seasons run because we know there are many students that are already involved in really meaningful sports and other activities. We do not want to take away from those important activities in sports, but we do want to provide that opportunity. So if I'm a football player in the fall and I'm all in for that, great, have at it. Come play League of Legends in the spring. And forgive me if my audio was breaking up there.
No, you're good. We caught that. Thank you so much. Let's talk about awards. Vina, we love to give out awards.
We do, and we like to recognize our TAPS schools participation. So just as we do with all our other events, we will like to recognize the TAPS member schools. So giving team awards and individual awards is our plan. We do want this to be something special that, we partnering with PlayVersus is a great thing. We are really excited about this, and we do want to recognize TAPS champions with all the different games that we have.
All right, thank you, Vina. I'm going to kick it back to Brian here, pick up on one of our questions we needed a little clarification on. The question says, I did not completely follow the response about full-time day students. If we offer a school option in person on campus and another option online, would those choosing the online not be considered full-time day students? That's a common question we're getting nowadays. Brian, help us out.
Robert mentioned earlier, and so did John, if we get in the question too far out in the weeds. So I apologize if we take you out into the high stuff here. The bottom line here is if your school is considering them a full-time day student and they're taking classes towards a graduation plan at your school, the plan right now is that both in person and online, if you're doing both on consecutive tracks or consistent tracks, would be eligible. I would highly encourage you to do us a favor. We haven't mentioned it yet, but info at TAPS, TAPPS.biz, info@taps.biz. Drop us an email with the phone number contact. One of us can get back with you, or feel free to call us here at the TAPS office, 254-947-9268. Be good to have your principal or whoever is deciding on those options with you as well, so we can walk through, because whatever we do for full-time day student for esports will also go back through and qualify for all activities. So esports is going to be governed by the same eligibility rules as others. So again, if you have dual tracks, one in person and one online, and they're still going towards their graduation requirements, then it's my belief at this point they'd be eligible, but we'll know more as we get closer. And again, feel free to reach out to us at info@taps.biz for any specific questioning on TAPS rules.
All right, thank you, Brian. I think that's all the questions we see so far. Nope, here's another one that just came in. Are schools allowed more than one team per game or only one team per game?
So this is Clint, I'll jump in on that one. So varsity is one official team per school per game. But we really think of club as being that training grounds or JV level to compete in. So if we take a concrete example, for a high school, they would have one varsity League of Legends teams, but they could have as many club League of Legends teams as they would like to compete within overall, and that would be the same for each of the games.
So Clint, accordingly with TAPS, that goes back to our idea, everyone in every activity gets one varsity opportunity and then sub-varsity off of that, or club in this case. So you would be eligible, but only one would be playing for the title at the end of the year, so to speak.
All right, thanks, guys. I don't see any more questions yet. If you have them, type them in right quick. What we've tried to do in this webinar is just give you some basic information, introduce you to the players involved and the resources you can reach out to if you need more information. So we'll begin making some closing comments here. I'll pass it back to Brian to give us kind of an overview of what we've talked about today.
Really just want to reach out to PlayVersus, Clint and James. Thank you guys for seeing TAPS and seeing the opportunity that exists here. As a school administrator, we always look for opportunities for students. We know that success rates go up exponentially when students are involved. Competitive activities, especially that require teamwork, but valuable life skills as we go forward. We definitely see PlayVersus as a great opportunity for that our students going forward, and it's not exclusive. As Clint explained earlier, they can participate in anything else and esports. So we look forward to that opportunity of crossing multiple lines, or they may just be an esports player. It all depends on what's going on at the time. I think there's a couple of opportunities as we go forward. I'm going to kick it back to Robert for a couple of more questions. And I think what we'll do is we will work on getting those answers for you as we go forward.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you, John. Do we have another poll that we can pop up right quick here?
Yes, sir. 1 second. We would like to know, folks, if you've already got an esports program running on your campus. If you've been doing that already, we're going to launch that real quick. Does your school participate in esports competitions currently? Please let us know. I got a couple more questions I can drop in here for us. All right, I'm going to close that poll. Looks like 19% yes and 81% no from what we have right here. All right, fellas, there's a couple of more questions in there. I'm going to hand it back to you, Robert.
All right, thanks, John. Here's a question. Will or does PlayVersus or TAPS place any restrictions on games based on ESRB ratings? Clint, can you help us with that?
Sure, yes, and forgive me for not mentioning this before. Yes, PlayVersus takes this very seriously. As a former administrator in schools, this is important from a school perspective and certainly a parent perspective. All games that PlayVersus offers at the high school level or below, well, when we get to middle school, hopefully in the near future, are either E for everyone or T for teen, so 13 plus. So you will not see any M for mature titles being offered for high school competition from PlayVersus.
All right, thank you. Here's one. Brian, I'll pass this one to you. Can junior high students compete in the club level?
I'm going to give you a quick answer, and I think it's going to follow with what we do with the other fine art programs, which was another reason in the background that we put them into fine arts. So, Vina, This would go along with the band and the other options we have. So to tell the folks what we can do with junior high students, because this would be like a sub-varsity contest.
So with some of our band competitions, you know, a lot of times it's hard to even field a full band when you don't have a trumpet department or your only trumpet player is in the 8th grade. And so with a lot of our fine arts opportunities, we do allow for those junior high students to help fill those teams. And so it would be definitely an option. Usually we require some sort of pre-approval where you just let us know that we have this many high school students and we'd like to have some junior high students also play to help fill that team. Like with league, you have to have 5 players. And so especially our smaller schools, it might be hard to fill that full slate for your team. So just if you do have students, we will have a way to include those junior high students with some sort of approval form that will just be sent to the office, just so that we know that you have those 8th graders and to make sure that you've got the right paperwork filled out for them with regards to compliance of eligibility.
All right, thank you, Vina. Here's another
a real quick kind of follow-up to that. My apologies. From our platform side and kind of how Play Versus works, and due to state, national, and local laws, we just require that any participant will be over the age of 13. So 13 or older. So that will typically get into your 8th grade and above. But we're definitely happy to help facilitate that process too.
All right, thank you so much. How many players per team? That's a good question.
I'm happy to jump in on this one. So League of Legends is a team of 5, and we usually recommend 2 substitutes because life gets busy and so forth. Rocket League is a starting team of 3, and to have 1 or 2 substitutes on that team would be great. Again, substitutes are not required, but it's certainly helpful. Fortnite is 2. And Smite is 5 as well. Again, it's always good to have 1 or 2 substitutes.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go to why did TAPS choose Play Versus rather than someone else? Brian, help us with that.
The biggest part is Play Versus is a National Federation of High School Partners. We are a National Federation of High School affiliate member. Therefore, we know that across the nation, Play Versus is going to be in competition, and we want our schools to be in that same opportunity. The other short answer is because they asked. And as we went forward and the more we learned from Clint and James and other folks, Play Versus being already vetted by the National Federation, we feel very comfortable with them as our partner.
Here's a question about amateurism related to esports, like maybe when a student makes money. How does that apply to TAPS? Well, within TAPS, our amateurism rules, that's not easy to say, apply to athletics. And that's another reason that esports is in the fine arts. There are other areas of fine arts where students that participate maybe in band and other things can go do that and make money off of it. So amateurism rules in the world of TAPS apply to athletic opportunities.
So down the road, we will also have additional webinars. If you go to taps.biz, TAPPS.biz, click on the calendar link on the right-hand side of the header bar. You'll find those opportunities. We'll also be sending emails out with the opportunity to sign up for those webinars as we go forward. Play Versus will definitely be a pretty big part of that as it's their specialty. We're going to be here to moderate that opportunity. Again, if you have questions for TAPS or if you want us to place them on to Play Versus, please email us at info@taps, TAPPS.biz, that's with a Z, or give us a call here at TAPS office, 254-947-9268. Again, if you go to taps.biz, click on Fine Arts, click on Play Versus Esports, and then on the right-hand side, you can also go to Contact Us, and there's a drop-down for Play Versus to ask questions directly to them. We appreciate you joining us here today. Robert, I'm going to throw it back to you, and we'll get our concluding comments.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Steve's quickly going to remind us about our next webinar coming up.
Yeah, right now on the calendar, we have a July 15th webinar. And as Vina has been saying, we can go into a little bit more detail in that one and get into the what needs to happen now to get started with the next school year. So look at July 15th, but more information will be coming.
All right, Steve, thank you. Vina, first, get some closing comments from you.
Guys, I really am excited about the partnership with Playversus. My husband and I were in a gaming center for about 10 years, and so we are gaming people. Me, not so much on the gaming side, but definitely him. So I am looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to our schools participating, and also just working with Playversus, with Clint being on the educator side, just hoping to bring more education into the gaming world. But then also just, the community of gaming itself, and how your students really get this bond with the players on their team. There are so many players that just find their niche in their football team or their band, and just seeing gamers over the last 20 years, knowing that these kids really find their community. I'm looking forward to that. There are a lot of students in our schools that don't have that place yet. And so this is a really good opportunity for them to do something that they're so comfortable with, that they have done in their homes for years, and now to bring it to the next level where they're playing with their friends and really establishing that community with them. So we are looking forward to this opportunity and partnership.
All right, thanks. Clint, give us some closing comments. Thanks for joining us today.
And well, thank you for having us. I'm going to speak for James and myself here. I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been such a pleasure to partner with TAPS and this whole leadership team that has been so good at really educating themselves on what this opportunity is, what it means for schools and students and so forth. So thank you all for that. I just want to share a quick number. 42% is the number that we found in polling students that have been playing to date that are part of an esports program, and it's the first time they've ever been part of a school activity or sport. And if you ask that question of them and you just ask about sports, that number goes up north of 70%. So to the point that was just raised, this is really about student engagement, both from an extracurricular and a curricular standpoint. I think the competitive opportunity and experience is fairly clear for this, especially since this is modeled very much after current opportunities for students. However, there are so many opportunities to link this experience to soft skills, 21st century skills that we see more and more schools adding to the curriculum. And we know employers and colleges and even the military are looking for students to have more familiarity with and to build on those. And I think esports, being an intrinsically motivating activity for students, then helps automatically link us to opportunities to help build those skills. I'm super excited about that. That's why I got into this business and why I'm working with esports in schools. And I'm really excited about bringing that opportunity to TAPS.
All right, thanks for joining us today. And with that, John, we'll pass it back to you to close us out.
All right, thank you, Robert. And once again, folks, thank you for joining us today. The recording of this webinar is going to be made available on our YouTube page, and we'll post links to that. And the link will also be in the follow-up email that everybody who registered for this webinar will get. A couple of things to plug real quick. We've got an episode coming out. We're looking to release that on July 6th. That is about esports for our podcast, TAPS Talk. We've talked to some schools inside TAPS that have already started programs and worked with PlayVS last year. We've got interviews with teachers and with administrators and with some students to put in there. Also, if you could do us a favor and follow our esports account on Twitter, that's @TAPS Esports. We're going to be putting links to resources and videos and content and everything that we get, just like we do for all of our other sports. We could use some followers there. Thank you, folks. Again, if you have any other questions, please let us know. info@taps.biz, and you have a good day.